Hey guys, it's Nick, and I believe this is going to be the fourth episode of the Jack of All Beanstalks podcast. I finally got my buddy Ryan to sit down with me where we can tell some good stories together. Part of the reason why this episode took so long to get up is because I was considering doing some nifty editing tricks with it, and that didn't really pan out. Things got busy, so I just realized if I never put this bad boy up here, it's never going up. So, anyway, as we come in here, I think I tried to start out a little bit informally with the recording. So, as we come in here, we're already going to be talking about some Dungeons and Dragons sessions that me and Ryan attend together, and another friend of ours who we're trying to record it for. So, that's what you're going to hear as we start out here, and then we're going to transition from that on to the rest of our stories together. So, happy listening, guys. Thanks for waiting. Hope you enjoy it.
um,
I was
which I
kidding.
actually forgot the other day, so I didn't record it last night. But if you have that recording, then that's great, and you should send it to him.
I was kidding though, actually, but yeah, that's now that I know that everyone's totally on board with that. Yeah, I'll totally
Oh,
do
okay.
that. So, no, I
You
was
can't just lie about that.
no.
You got me excited. It's like, sweet. now, now I don't have to. Oh wait. Well, I guess not. I can probably start doing that if you haven't. Uh, he told me to probably use OBS to do it because it'll record the other people's mic better. Hopefully, I don't know if I don't know the technical end, but that's what he recommended. Mostly because it's the easiest. Probably not the best.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, we do come up with some good stuff though during our sessions, so that wouldn't be such a bad idea. That'd be a fun thing to do, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. But yeah, that's just
But plus, he just wanted to listen to him. I guess he's been mixing it since he's not part of the game anymore.
Well, yeah, yeah, I feel bad for that. I hope he can start coming around again at some point. Because I don't know if you knew this, but he said like, I was texting him one day, and he was all like, uh, I asked him like if he was tired, and he said, yeah, but I'm staying up intentionally because I need to stay up to recalibrate my clock because I'm moving on to another schedule, another shift, a different shift. I was like, oh great. Do you think you're gonna be able to be a part of D&D and everything? And he goes, no, I'm only doing the other shift for this month. It was either this month or this week. So I was like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
that's brutal. So like that's what he's been doing. He's not
Yeah.
only been so busy that he genuinely just can't make sessions, but he's also been like just occasionally switching his shift every once in a while, and that's gotta be brutal.
It seems to be more than occasionally too. It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
I really feel for it.
that's what I want to get from him though. If I ever have him on the podcast, is I want to get like his stories about that if he's able to tell them, and his stories about retail. Because I asked him about, I
Oh man.
yeah, I asked him about.
Retail is a whole big can of worms. It doesn't matter where you're working in retail. You always get stories.
Well, you
I
work.
probably have a few stories if you'd like those too. But
Where did you work in retail exactly again? Is it?
I was at McDonald's, so it's just like
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember you and
the
him talking
worst.
about that. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, sorry, but no, yeah, that. Oh man,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
How long
Yep.
did you work there?
It was during college.
So summer jobs.
Just summer, yeah, just for summer. Um, so it was like I think 2 summers. Um, and then I had to go back at some point for another summer, I think. But it was still it was still bad. Actually, the worst time was when I got an internship that was unpaid. Yay, Murica.
I
But I still needed money, so I was working the internship early mornings uh, during that summer, and then I was working at McDonald's at third shift.
Oh,
You know,
fun.
on that another week. So I mean, it wasn't actually. It's not the same day. What I did was I had like a split week where I had like a few days. I was at the internship, like 3 days internship, and I had 3 days third shift McDonald's. But I would switch my schedule back and forth because it was early morning uh, at the internship, and then late at night at McDonald's. Get at 2 or 3 a.m. and then I have to switch my schedule around. Like I had one day in between to switch it around. That was a really tough like month. It was just like a month that lasted, but man, that wrecked me physically.
Dang. What was that? So yeah, I remember you saying too the hardest, like I think you were talking about a little bit of everything, but you said the kitchen was like ungodly, like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, honestly, I've I had another restaurant job at IKEA before this, and I mean, when you compare, it's just kind of like the.
Did you say
I
IKEA?
just realized that honestly, most restaurants will have plenty of gross things. Um, just because at the like, if you're ever cleaning anything in a restaurant, that's it just piles up grease, and never get into a job where you have to clean a fryer or something.
I did have a job where I had to clean a fryer at the,
Oh,
yeah, it was at the, BBC cafe, actually.
uh,
It was back at college. Yeah, that was I had to come in, every Sunday, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Sunday. And I'd come in there actually before anybody else. I can't remember. I think either I was given. I think like either my student ID was able to work there, um, because I was given some sort of clearance, or there was a door that was just unlocked for part of the time. But I would get there like at least like 2 or 3 hours before uh Jason would get there, our supervisor would get there, and I would come in by myself and go into the back in the kitchen area, and my job would be to basically give the entire kitchen area more or less a once over before anything started, and that included draining out the fryer. So yeah, you have to do the whole thing where like you take the baskets out, then you open the bottom half, and you put that special pipe on there that like lets all the
uh,
slop drip out.
oh, no, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so you
I
open. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I actually, I never had to clean stuff at like the really gross stuff at McDonald's because I don't know, maybe they just don't ever clean. Honestly, I worked a lot of different shifts at McDonald's, and I have never seen them actually clean that fryer. So there's a scary thought. Um, but
They just keep.
except for when they know that the health inspector's coming, then they clean everything, and then they don't when there's not one coming. Um, Fun times.
They just keep
But
reheating the same grease over and over and over again, assuming that it kills all the germs
I
over and
mean,
over.
if it's at a certain temperature, it will kill all the germs. It'll look gross, but I guess that's why the fries are so delicious, right?
Oh god.
It's actually the same grease they fry the hash browns in. They just use a different temperature. Um, but also why they're delicious. Um, but the
All right, there.
IKEA
Huh.
Bistro. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sorry. I thought you said whatever. But I worked at a IKEA Bistro. Like it's like it's not their respectable restaurant. It's like the place that sells hot dogs and frozen yogurt. Um, but the boiled hot dogs, we would clean the boiler, and all the hot dog grease at the end of the day would have to get flushed out and clean. And they actually cleaned it every, but that means I had to clean. And that was gross, and made me not want to eat hot dogs for the longest time.
So
I never ate boiled hot dogs for that. It's just much worse than grilled or anything.
so for the yeah, the way we did it at the BBC was obviously, they had those you worked at the BBC for a little bit, didn't you, or not?
Hmm.
Did you work at the cafe or no?
I worked at the CAF.
Oh, at the
Yeah, not
calf.
the BBC.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
I cleaned up some stuff in there, but I wasn't at the uh where they serve food or anything. I was just cleaning their table and stuff mostly. So I did clean the kitchen floor a little bit, but really we just kind of hosed it down and mopped. So nothing too greasy.
yeah. So when I was at the when I was cleaning the BBC, you'd have to go over and kind of try to give, like, if you were ever in the kitchen of the BBC at all, like there's the fryer is in the middle, and on the right side of the fryer was just like this spare space where I think they laid everything out, or they had like some like pieces that you used every once in a while. And I think it's like also where they put the baskets with the handles that you lower into the fryer. And that was on
Mm-hmm.
the right side. On the left side was like the stove and oven, I think. And you had to like. So anyway, the fryer was in the middle, and when I first got there, actually, they had like an ancient fryer that they eventually replaced within the time that I was working there. So it was like
I
all.
just want to say, ancient fryer sounds amazing. Kind of
Yeah,
artifacts from a civilization long past.
yeah, from like an Echoes of Mana civilization, like a cool steampunk
Oh
civilization. Yeah,
yeah.
everything runs on grease. No. But no.
Grease punk.
Oh God! Wow. Okay, we just invented something new right there. That's awesome. Yeah, like giant mechs fighting big
I'll get right
monsters.
on that.
Giant mechs fighting big monsters made out of grease. That'd be great. Yeah, but no, like the first one was seriously like ancient. Like it was it. I don't know how old it was exactly, but it was. It started out. I seem to remember it having started out. It must have started out like an ordinary freaking color, like just the color of steel or stainless steel or whatever it'd be made out of. I have no idea what it would be made out of, but just it was yellow. Like instead of being any like silvery color or any shiny color, it was like all yellow and brown from like all the age and rust and crap over it. That's the way I remember it anyway. And yeah, eventually we got a new one that was brand new and it looked brand new. And as soon as we got it, my supervisor was like, "Okay, I want to keep this pretty freaking clean for as long as we possibly can, because the implication being I'm gonna be here far longer than you are. So for crying out loud, please keep this as nice as you can." So we had to, yeah, I remember it. It's all coming back to me now. So those baskets that have the fries in them, or the just the yeah, the fries. I think we only get that with fries. So the fries that we lowered in there, they hooked into the this weird piece of metal that was hooked onto the back end that was designed to hold them up. So you had to take the baskets
Oh
out, take that weird metal piece off, and it was always that stuff is always covered in grease, but it's also like really sharp and firm on the edges. But you gotta like dig into the edges so that you can pop it out. Like if you know what I'm talking
yeah.
about, everything's like greasy and slippery, but you gotta pop it out by digging like under your fingernails on the edge of the metal. It was really sucked. And yeah, you gotta do that, and we had to like I remember now, yeah, we had to, because I had to just do those in the dishes. I had to wipe off the baskets and that piece of metal in there. There was also like a piece of metal, I think, attached to the side that was meant to purely just to keep the grease from flying out, that we had to take, that I had to wipe down. And
Do you have like a power washer at least, like one of those high pressure hoses essentially? That's
more or less, it was pretty much what you'd find in your own kitchen, like the little spray gun that you have on your
oh yeah.
kitchen sink. But it was a little more powerful than that, I think. But anyway, yeah, like we did. So like it wasn't a complete cesspool, but it just doing it over and over again. It was like oh gosh, but so
Yeah,
all
it's
that,
always the part of the day you're not looking forward to.
yeah, yeah, but the first thing that you always did though before you did any of that was the way this fryer, I don't know the way it was at McDonald's, but the way this fryer was built, it's really, really small. Like it would fit, like it's like the size of a nightstand, except a little bit higher. And you gotta like scoop down and open the front of it. That's the other thing. You gotta like dig your nails into this big metal door on the front of it and swing it open so you can see like the inside of the fryer. And below it is this pipe, this open pipe with no end on it, but it's got a valve on the side of it, and you can open the valve to release all the grease. And it on
Oh,
the
oh,
I think kept on that table on the right side of the fryer was a that little curved metal pipe, and you would literally screw, there was one end of it that had ridges on it, and you would screw that metal pipe into the open pipe on the fryer, and then you would take this bucket, this, oh, I remember that, oh my gosh. So you had to go down to the, you had to go down, do you remember were you ever in the basement of the BBC?
no, I never went to the basement.
Okay, well that place was truly ancient. It's kind of funny that I talked about the fryer being ancient, because you have to go downstairs where everything is like brick and wood, and I remember now they that's where they kept the fryer bucket. Like for some reason they kept the fryer bucket,
Temple
but
of the Friar.
seriously though, like they kept this. They you had to go all the way downstairs to the super creepy staircase to like apparently they actually considered putting that haunted house that they had on campus. They actually considered putting that in the basement because of the BBC because it was that creepy.
Oh,
But
that would be amazing.
I know, but our
Because
supervisor,
the BBC had like the that myth of what Fast Eddie, right?
yeah, the
Too.
ghost, yeah,
So like
yeah.
we actually, yeah. So it actually was considered haunted too.
I
That makes
know,
sense.
and that's the thing. Like, you're when you go down there, you're convinced that it must be haunted because it's like nothing's been really updated since. Like, it probably looks the same down there that it looked like when it was back in the freaking 70s or something like that. It's really weird. There's all these old pieces of crap like lined up all the way through the basement, off into weird corners, and like uh uh, yeah, and like there's only bare light bulbs, I think, or not bare light bulbs, but just like really bad lights, old lights lighting up that place. And I had to go down there once every single time I went there just to get a bucket, and they kept the bucket down there because it was so freaking disgusting. Like old, it was this big wide.
Just isolate it. No one wants to deal with it.
Yes, seriously, because like it
Oh,
was the handles were always slippery because it was forever caked in grease. I'm not kidding you. On the outside and the inside, like you just kind of got used to it and you had to mop up wherever it landed, but you could leave it like on the floor of the basement. So you'd pick it up by the handles, then carry it upstairs, bring it all the way back over into the kitchen and to the fryer, put it in front of the fryer below that extra pipe that you'd screwed on, and then turn the valve, and then you would release all of the grease into this bucket. And I think, mercifully, I think it had to only be one trip that was needed to empty out all the grease, although I seem to remember that there might have been two trips necessary for it, because I think that was it too. I think we actually had to pour water down
Yeah,
the.
usually you have to put some extra water or maybe even soap water to rinse it down even more.
That's
I,
right.
I did that with the boilers when I was emptying those at here, so that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, we had
It,
to.
it doesn't make it any more fun.
No, not really. So yeah, we had to do that, and then you had to like pick, and then it was super heavy. So you had to like heave up, bend down, and lift with your back, and lift up this big heavy bucket. And it also had like a cover on it that was secured with these weird lever things on the side of the bucket. And anyway, you did all that just to get the slop into this bucket and with the lid sealed on and try very carefully not to spill it at all. And yeah, I remember it was so heavy. It was so heavy. We would put it on a roller too. I remember that now. It was heavy enough and big enough. We had to put it on a roller, and you would very, very carefully roll this big bucket of old grease and fries through the out of the kitchen, through like past the really nice hallway area back there, all the way to the back door where it's getting jostled by the raised carpet and everything. So any second now, you know you're gonna spill the whole thing.
Oh,
You take it all the way to the back. You have to heave it over the doorway, which is raised super high. You have to bring it out to that outside landing on the back of the BBC. Then you have to finally just take the bucket off and hoof it. I think all the way over there. Or actually, no, I think it's too heavy for that.
oh.
I think you had to bring the roller like it was like a video game where you have to transport someone in a precarious position. You have to like take them off of the roller,
It
put it.
sounds like the worst video game.
Yes, you have to grab the bucket, put it down on the back landing, take the roller, toss it.
0 out of 10, literally unplayable.
Yes, seriously, and then you have to wheel it over to the dumpster, throw the dumpster lid back open, and obviously it smells disgusting, and like line up the roller just right so that you can like wrap your thumbs and your arms kind of around the bucket. You have to be wearing an apron or else while you dump the bucket out, or else you'll rub the grease from the bucket into your shirt. And then you have to lift it just long enough to balance it on the edge of the. I think it was it the dumpster? I seem to remember it was the dumpster, or it was like a.
Just throw it into the dumpster. It's
No,
like grease.
no,
Your
it
grease
wasn't.
into the
But
dumpster.
but we did pour it into.
You gotta pour it down some kind of pipe, something that can handle it.
Yeah,
Oh, actually, when we were cleaning boiler at IKEA, they planned it really well. You're gonna hate me for this, but we actually had a grate with like piping just under that boiler, so we would drain it, but we drain it directly into that plumbing right underneath it. So it all just drained down for us, and we have no buckets involved. We don't have any kind of spillage necessary. Like it was still gross because you got to clean the actual boiler itself, but all the grease, at least, the volume of that liquid will all go down the drain immediately.
yeah. I can't remember now, but I know we didn't just dump it into the dumpster. You're right. I don't think, but like we dumped it. We dumped it into something back there. No, I remember now. It wasn't the dumpster. It
The
was
grease
like
had to go somewhere.
no, it wasn't the dumpster. That's
Where
right.
does it go?
No, that's right. It was the yes. That's what made it even worse. You had to pull the roller in behind the dumpster. So you remember how the dumpster was inside that little enclosed fence. There was another dumpster behind that one that was basically it was like a a special disposal one that was
Biohazard.
basically yeah, that's what I was gonna say, like waste disposal, and then you had to balance it perfectly on the rim of that extra dumpster and pour all the slop down there and then bring it back. And I think it only took one trip, but I seem to remember that at times it might have also taken two. I don't know, but yeah, and you had to do all that before you finally just cleaned the fryer and cleaned everything else. But that was like the first thing I would always do because Like you were Gary. That's the weird thing about it is you would get everything else dirty just by cleaning up the fryer because there was so much freaking grease making contact with everything. It was because we had to use
Uh,
that roller that was in the back of the BBC like the whole time. There was a roller that just sat in the BBC to be used for different stuff, and you'd have to like take soap and water and wipe it down after you used it every single time. I know I've been going on for a while, but all this stuff has been like popping back into my head. All this repressed trauma that I'm working my way through now.
Speaking of repressed trauma,
Oh,
I think you were asking me about the dentist that one time.
I was.
Right. This will be your most horrifying podcast. It'll be great.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah. So how long ago was this?
Oh, shoot, when, um, it had to be about 5-ish years ago. Because it was a summer during college.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I got them removed relatively early. They're coming in and not entirely like out yet, but it was enough showing that it was recommended I go ahead and get them out now. Um, 5 years ago, now 5 years ago. But uh, yeah. So you said that you recently got your wisdom teeth removed, but you actually went under. Uh, you were unconscious during it, but I was
Mercifully, yes.
not. I went for the manliest way to get them removed, just watching it done. Um, just a local anesthesia, and this is you've had local anesthesia before, right? Where they just numb you. Uh,
Several times. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So for anyone listening who hasn't, it's always a weird feeling where they'll prick you with the needle, of course, and that hurts initially, but after it numbs you, you can still feel like pulling if they're like moving stuff around. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of an odd feeling where you can't feel like the touch or any of the pain, but you can feel pulling, and it's since it's in your mouth, it's your lips are just getting pulled around or pushed around to get it out of the way, and that's all you feel, and everything else is just the sights and sounds of what this guy is putting in your mouth and pulling out. Um,
Dang.
and that's the fun part. I have a twisted sense of fun. Um,
This is
I
just
found it
like
very interesting how medieval the techniques were sometimes, because uh, I think the worst of it was the saw, which is like it's basically like a buzz saw, honestly. When he's just cutting the teeth, like one of my teeth out, uh, yeah, they just like rev this thing up, and you hear, and that's going in your mouth.
dang. Oh my
um,
gosh.
so you brings it in. You can't like feel anything, but you can see any blood that comes out, and uh, and the other thing that you can kind of feel, because I can feel like the pulling and stuff. You've had that sensation with the local anesthesia before.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I actually was able to uh, feel like the mist of tooth dust, I guess I could call it, as he's like taking the saw to the teeth to get it out as well as he can. Oh my gosh, there's a very unique uh, feel to tooth dust. I cannot describe it at all. Just being able to say that is probably enough of a good picture there. he like used different techniques for each tooth because of like how far it was in, I guess. Because like one of them, he like actually broke the tooth up with essentially a what amounted to a chisel and a hammer, and just kind of like tink tink tink, and and like like again, I feel like the pressure and pulling or any kind of that kind of stuff. So you can kind of have like, because if you like hit the tooth, you like the vibration goes through your jaw, and you'll feel like elsewhere. It'll eventually, I don't feel any pain at all from any of this, but like you can kind of experience it still. And then he starts like just taking tweezers, pulling out little chips of tooth from after he broke it up there. Oh, it's a very honestly, it seemed like a very makeshift process. I don't know if he messed up at some point, and I don't know, maybe he did. But he ended up having to do that, and it was a really interesting process, a very unique experience. I'll say that much.
How many did you actually have to take out?
Well, it was four. It was the
Oh
one
man.
tooth on top and bottom of left, top and bottom of right. So it's all four wisdom teeth going out in one. And when they do the numbing, they have to prick basically all four edges of your jaw because
Are you there?
numb all four corners because they're actually all pretty far apart when you
Yeah.
think about it. The they're the far ends of your jaw line, and basically just have no feeling my entire face, other than like maybe my eyeballs and up are the first parts that I can actually feel anything at that point. The whole jawline and lower mouth are just completely numb.
I've had a cavity filled in before, and I went through a process kind of similar. Did they put like the thing in your mouth to dry it out, like that fan thing that keeps like spit from forming in your mouth and holds your mouth open and
Like the
keeps.
hose, you mean? That like sucks it all up, or
No,
what?
not just the thing you close your mouth on, but like I've had a cavity filled in before, and what they did for me was they have this piece of yeah, it is a hose, but it's not like the usual hose thing. It's like a hose that's got this huge plastic end on it, and it's designed to like fit in a corner of your mouth in such a way where it will move your tongue over and also dry out like the whole rest of your mouth pretty much so that no spittle can form in the way of where they're working. It's
Hmm.
very odd.
I don't recall that, but then again,
Okay,
it was a while ago, so
yeah, but
maybe.
yeah, I'll
I,
go ahead
I
and
was mostly interested in all the tools and stuff that are going in it.
yeah. I actually have felt the tooth dust before because do you ever use
Oh,
the really fine drill, the really like fine drill
um,
that squeaks super loud?
yeah, I think you use that too.
Yeah.
I've had a cavity filled too, so it's yeah, that's what they use a lot for cavities. Um, it's for that, and I don't know if he was using that too. I think he used that as well, but there was like a slot thing that was just insane. I'm glad you got to feel the tooth dust because it's unique.
It is. It's
You can
very.
tell it's not like anything else. It's not like just water or butter or something else. It's like solid, kind of like you imagine sawdust to be, but like almost more hefty.
Yeah, it's really really unnerving. Is what it is. Yeah, yeah, it's really nuts. So
The whole process is unnerving if you having your wisdom teeth removed and you're awake for it. The even the numbing. Did you have any? local anesthesia in your mouth or jaw area
Well, I had,
before.
did you have a syringe like injected directly with a syringe in your jaw?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I have every time.
4 times.
Yeah, oh
I
yeah,
actually had stitches in my lip before that too, so I've had it before. Um, where they did numb my lower jaw for that too.
yeah. So they put like that Q-tip thing in your mouth that's got like that numbing cream on it that numbs your gum first, and then they numb your
Yeah,
gum so they can
it's like
stick
rubbing
that.
alcohol. I think. No, no, it's got some numbing stuff on it.
Yeah, and they stick that huge syringe into your gum line and do that. Yeah, that's always fun. Uh,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
puncturing has like that uh very distinct uh, needle in mouth sound
Yeah, yeah.
when it goes through. It's beautiful.
You can feel it
In
like
the most
moving.
horrifying way.
You can feel it moving under your tissue as well. Yeah, it's really nutty. Um, my dentist actually was really kind though. He's I think just over years of experience, he's figured out that if he can like he grabbed my lip and he would like rub his fingers over my lip in this weird way where it's like he just like rub his fingers continuously over one edge of my lip, like just hold out the edge of my lip and do that because like he's distracting me and spreading the area of the touch. Just he's like activating more of my nerves in that area of my mouth so that it doesn't feel as sharp as it would
Oh,
without it. So
kind of massage your lip
basically, yeah,
as
like
a
really, he would,
distraction.
yeah, as a distraction. And, like I think
I,
it's
I
also,
I
yeah,
can say I've never actually massaged someone else's as a distraction. So
well, good for you. You're not. That's why you didn't. That's why you're not man enough for a dentist chair.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what it's like that thing where they say if you, in theory, like if you're in the zone enough, you can almost step on like 1,000 thumbtacks with your bare foot because, and you won't feel that much pain because all your nerves are activated as opposed to if you just step on one tack and like you're able to.
Well, if you're stepping on a ton of thumbtacks, then you theoretically have more area that's holding you up, and you're not actually gonna have all that pressure in one spot.
That's like what he's doing there with the lip is spreading the surface area that's being affected by pressure, so that it takes a little bit
Yeah.
of the stabbing away from it. But yeah, yeah, that's really. So I considered having my wisdom tooth taken out awake, but I was able to not have it done. But I was in a rare percentage of people. They always say that there's like 30, it's either 30 or 28% of people, something like that, who only have one wisdom tooth. And
Oh.
I only had one wisdom. That statistic is probably BS to be honest with you, but I remember it like it's from YouTube, so that means we know it's real. But I
Always true.
yeah, yeah. So I only had one, but it also I not only had one, but it also grew in straight. So it grew up relatively straight where it wasn't like directly impacting the other teeth, and the part that it was hurting really was like the back of my gum. I think like the very back of my jawbone. I think because it was just too big for that space, so it was probably rubbing up against the tooth a little bit. But I thought it also was just too big to come in all the way in my jawline, and it was just nutty. So and it grew in straight, and it also had really deep roots, and that's why my dentist couldn't remove it himself. Actually, he sent me to like a separate oral surgeon because it was so big and it had such big roots that it was like all the way down to the nerve in my jawline. He's like, yeah, I think he said to me like, yeah, I would remove that myself, but frankly, I'm not good enough to deal with basically I'm not good enough to get all the way down there and deal with potential nerve damage, and I don't want to get that close to your nerve. So that's
Oh.
yeah. So I'd go to somebody else. But and I told the surgeon too. I was honest with him once I saw the price tag. I was like, I'll be honest with you, I can't help wishing that I could just like take a pair of pliers and just like hold my eyes shut and yank it out. And he goes, I know I have had patients rip their own teeth out before, but you can't. And I was like, why not? And he goes, because that thing is huge and it's not gonna come out. Basically, it's too big to just come out. You can't just yank it out because it's gonna be way too big to be put out. That's
Yeah,
right by a nerve.
yeah. Teeth are strong. Like you can probably remove like some small ones, but like the your wisdom teeth. The whole point of the fact that you have to get them removed is because they're too big for your mouth. Like literally the reason you gotta get them removed is that they don't even fit. They're too big. And yeah, they're usually want to get them out as they're coming in, so that they might even not even be completely out yet. Mine were still just kind of partially showing, but since all four of them were like coming out at once, they're like, yeah, you should probably get those removed, like soon.
The truth is, I didn't even know mine had grown in either. Like because it wasn't.
Oh,
It was.
you
It
didn't notice like your mouth had a tooth partially coming in?
no, I didn't because there was only one, and it was only in the very back, and it wasn't growing in such a way where it was directly pressing on my back tooth the whole time. So I only noticed it as soon as it was like fully, like almost fully grown out of my jawline, and once it was like pressing on the back, only then did I notice like a little bit of soreness, and it wasn't even bad enough to make me like really notice it. And then finally I was like, oh, I think I have this like. It was a really really subtle pain, like a really really subtle soreness for me. So finally, I got to the
Yeah.
point where I'm like, okay, this isn't from like something like just a little, like this isn't normal. There really is something. And finally, it hit me. I was like, oh right. And I googled what age you're supposed to be when your wisdom teeth come in. I was like, oh right, I'm 25, so that's probably about right. So I look in the mirror and I'm just gonna say I had an extra tooth in the very back of my mouth that I had had no idea was there, and it was fully grown and it had been there for like at least a month or two, and
Stealth tooth.
I had not been
Silent tooth.
addressing it at all when I brushed my teeth in the morning, so it looked pretty freaking bad. Like it was really really awful, and yeah, like it was really so yeah. I basically had like a rotten tooth in the back of my mouth, which really really sucked. It was one of those things where like as soon as you know it's in there, you're like, oh my god, get that out of me right now. So yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
well, I mean, I guess you never needed to brush it, so there's that, because it's just coming out.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That's what I thought. Yeah, even my
Oh
yeah.
no. Oh, you don't want that like to spread though.
No, not really, not really. It was all on its own though. I was so lucky that it didn't do that. Like it didn't form like it wasn't really damaging my gums yet or anything. It was just it was a stealth tooth. Like I had no idea it was there for. That's why I felt like I was rare because it did
Like they,
not.
they don't come in that like quickly. It's not all at once. So that just seems odd to me. Because I definitely knew mine were coming in, but then again, like four at once is always uh is more than one, obviously. But they like start peeking out at first. Yeah, I can feel it with my tongue. I remember like feeling my tongue. It feels weird. Just it's kind of like when uh your adult teeth start coming in after your first teeth fall out. So
Yeah,
just just the fact that they're like at the far end of your jaw is the difference.
yeah. Those I that didn't happen for me. So I have no yeah. I was embarrassed about it, but then I was like, I can't believe that grew in as straight as it did. So I don't know, but I finally I did that, and they had to when I woke up. I couldn't help asking to see it. Like right before they got me out of the chair and took me like back to an area to rest to sleep off the rest of the anesthesia, I asked to be able to see it, and they hacked it pretty much right down the middle, or cut like the very top of it off, and pulled the rest out. So it was pretty nice. But yeah, I strongly considered not doing that too, because I strongly considered not doing the anesthetic and doing it awake as well. But then I was like, no, it's in my case at least. I was like, it's worth it. I can't do it while I'm awake. My morbid curiosity wasn't strong enough to allow me to endure that. So your fortitude was greater than mine in that
I
regard.
I have that morbid curiosity. I describe the experience as unique and interesting and one of a kind, and that it takes a specific kind of person to to describe it as that. It's kind of like watching a film, really. Like it really is because one you can't actually feel any of the pain or any of the that stuff happening, and two, like you can't do anything about it. Like you see the drill coming down towards your mouth, and you know it's gonna happen, but you can't do anything about it. Like same with like in a horror film, you always have that moment where you see like the murderer is behind you, and you want to yell at them like look behind you or something, but you can't because they won't. It's a movie. You're just there to watch. You just gotta watch it happen, and if you like horror movies, then being awake for your wisdom teeth removal might be the greatest horror movie of your life. Uh, so if you enjoy that, there you go. It's like the most real because they will not pull any punches there. It's just real stuff. You gotta stay still and let him do it. I think I don't know. I think my head was probably strapped down or something, so I just can't move or anything. So it's like even more just restraining.
Yeah, I don't know. I just was there a ton of blood when they were done though too? Was there blood all over like
It was
your?
fun the whole time. I mean, and yeah, when it was done too. But the like there will be some blood splatters during the operation as they like working in there. Uh, that's kind of what the hose is for. It's mostly uh, blood mixed with saliva, but like it's got to bleed. It's got a bunch of blood vessels nearby, and you can't really go around them. But the the whole time afterwards, it's just a pool of blood. They basically have a bunch of gauze. You had the same thing probably because whether you're asleep or awake, you're gonna have that blood still.
Yeah,
So you had
yeah,
gauze too, right?
yeah. I had a crap ton of gauze
I guess
and
you only had
whatever.
one though.
Yeah,
That's the difference. So
yeah,
I had like gauze that's basically restricting my whole mouth. I couldn't talk for for the rest of the day, obviously. Um, and I basically just had to keep that there for forever. I can only have water. I can't basically can't eat, but I can take it out. I could take it out like the next day, I think. But that's when I had to start using painkillers because man, it's still super sore after that.
yeah.
I'm really glad they prescribed you those painkillers afterwards. I remember being really happy for those. Uh, it started to really hurt. Toothaches are not a joke. Once the local anesthetic wears off, it's just sore everywhere on your jaw. Uh,
Yeah, what I did was I got done with it and then we drove home and I went to bed right afterwards. And when I woke up, I was in like piercing awful pain just in that one corner of my mouth because I could I could literally feel myself bleeding. Like I could feel you can feel the blood and everything like coming oozing out of the wound. It's really awful. So took the uh
yeah.
I took the gauze out, and I had like this big clump of gauze. But what I learned to do actually was it was small enough and I guess well done enough that I just had to take like this very small fine strip of gauze and fold it over and hold that gauze like halfway uh, halfway between my back teeth and halfway over the wound. So I was like basically holding the gauze in place over my wound by clenching it in my back teeth there. So I could feel the gauze like settle down onto the hole where my tooth used to be and then soak up the blood very quickly. And as soon as it actually soaked up the blood, it was like night and day difference where I was totally fine. And I didn't need, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm better than you because you had four of them taken out and I can't imagine. But like, for me, it was good enough that I was able to, like, as soon as the gauze touched my wound, it soaked everything up and stopped the bleeding and it stopped hurting. Like, I mean, not totally, but the difference was like night and day. Where when you took that tiny little piece of gauze out of my mouth, my like it slowly the pain like slowly escalated, and by 5 minutes later, I would be like having to sit super still because if I moved an inch, I would be in intolerable pain. But as soon as you put
Yeah,
yeah,
it was pretty bad pain, and I remember being super too. Like I was I was just like while I wanted the painkillers, like give me the painkillers. I want it now. Like where are they? Like I'm done with everything. Everything is awful. But yeah, I didn't I don't know anything about it like a second gauze or anything. I don't remember if I had a second gauze or I just had to like dull it because uh,
well, yeah, you probably
it was
had
bad.
like depending on the way your individual teeth were, you probably had it so bad. Because I was so lucky because mine was really just the equivalent of ripping one tooth out and covering that wound relatively neatly. But depending on the way the ears grew in, that was probably there were probably all kinds of different like huge holes and things in your
Yeah,
mouth.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is before they were like at different stages of growing in. So like that's probably why they needed a different technique for each one, and kind of just it really is makeshift. It's as much as you can uh, do to get it out. Whatever you can do to get it out is your method right there. Um, I feel like dentistry in general. I'm not a dentist, so I don't quote me. But like, I feel like dentistry in general really the the biggest change we've had since the original pulling of teeth has been just adding anesthesia in general. Like now you don't have to be in pain when we rip your teeth out. But we're still going to use a drill or a wrench or whatever we have lying around to do all the work.
Or a
You know,
chisel. Yeah.
it's just like basic tools and a mirror. Like there's a little bit more high tech stuff now, but it's just barely enough that like they'll have a maybe they have like a camera they use instead of a plain mirror or whatever, but they're basically just chipping away at teeth or you know it doesn't seem like any of the tools for dentistry like I'm not like belittling dentistry because you do have to know a lot about teeth to do it, but the tools itself always seem so simple.
Yeah, just big drills and stuff. I actually had a funny moment too because I was waiting for the numbing. I was waiting for my mouth to get completely numb while when I was having the cavity before I was having the cavity put in, and the dentist decided to wait as long as he could to make sure that it was totally numb. So for a little while, we just sat there next to each other awkwardly, waiting for my mouth to get more numb. One corner of it. So I asked him, like, I just, me being me, I kind of just asked him, like, how he ended up being a dentist. And literally the first words he said were, well, I first wanted to be an architect. But basically, that didn't work out, so I became a dentist. It's a long story short.
Yeah, that's an interesting change of career choice.
I told him I was like, well, you still are an architect in a way if you think about it. He goes, yeah, sure. So he's probably heard that like 1,500 times already. But yeah, I told him I was like, well, at least you didn't say that you were a butcher because that would make me really really nervous. So
What's the worst job to transfer from to into being a dentist? What would be the most nerve wracking? Butcher is a good one, but I feel like we could go worse. For some reason, this is where my mind goes. What could be worse?
yeah, I don't know,
That's,
like maybe a blacksmith.
ooh, blacksmith is good.
He would forge his
Oh,
own modern dentistry tools and out of steel. I have a furnace like right next to the dental chair. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's probably where that leads to. I don't know. I found that more and more too. As I have no idea how certain practices can be whole professions that you actually want to do for a career, but I'm extremely grateful to the people that do them. And I'm not talking about like blue collar jobs. I'm talking about things like dentistry and stuff. Like
oh yeah,
no one
yeah.
ever looked. I feel like no one ever looked. Like kids might say, "I want to be a dentist," just because like it's a kiddie thing to say. Like I want to be the person who makes sure everybody's teeth are healthy because it's like a good moral thing to say. But nobody
Yeah,
ever.
every kid wants to either be a police officer, a fireman, or something like that. And dentist is on that list. Uh, the doctor definitely, and other things, but it's that's just what kids want. Like the kid always wanted to be like some sort of hero, basically. That doing doing something good.
Yeah, but nobody. But at the same time, nobody ever actually consciously says, "I want to spend like the rest of my professional life poking around the inside of people's mouths with sharp metal tools and dealing with their crappy teeth and fixing all their mistakes."
I don't know. I people still go for that. Like they really just want the, but it's a lot more rare once you realize how gross people's mouths are sometimes.
Yeah,
Because like you and me are probably some of the people who will take care of our teeth decently well, and that we're maybe average in that right that will have pretty decent uh, teeth and they're okay. But once you like, if you ever see pictures of all the rotten and terrible teeth that can sometimes arise, then you realize that dentists have to deal with all the worst teeth too. There's a
oh
lot of
jeez.
there's a lot of the really gross mouths you have to deal with. I think every job has some weird hidden uh, uh, horrors that you don't think about until you get down to it, though. But yeah, dentistry has a problem with really bad teeth sometimes. Uh, that's what would really make me not want to be a dentist. I think because every once in a while someone strolls in and they've never had dental insurance and they only barely took care of the teeth and they come in, they have 20 cavities and their teeth are kind of rotting, they're yellowish with some black here and there, and you're just like, I gotta work on that mouth now because he's paying me, and yes, he's paying me a lot, but honestly, I'd rather the people who pay me a little bit to work on a clean mouth.
Yeah, yeah. That's what. I don't know what. I don't know what. Every job's got horrors in it. That's a really good theme to keep in mind. Is that Good thing you. It's also yeah. It's one of those
Except
things.
mine. Mine's just easy.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, if there's like what the hidden horrors are of your line of work, and but
Honestly, I, I've grown to the point where I think my job has become easy, which honestly I think you know you're in the right job when you think it's easy. That's like the perfect uh the perfect job for you because everyone else thinks it's hard. But if I think it's easy, then that means it's exactly where I should be. uh, I mean, I'm mostly just working on computers all day. Well, when I say working on computers, I'm working with computers, not like fixing them up. Uh, work with lots of data. It's data analysis, so that's what it does. But I program most of my jobs, so I just make software that does the job for me. And then if someone else done, I just use the same thing I already programmed 2 weeks ago. Uh, so honestly, the real problem with my job is when there's people who just don't understand what I do, and I have to explain to them why I can't do a certain thing with the data. A lot of people think if you're a computer guy that you're just basically a wizard and you wave your arm and just make data happen. it's all it's all nice and perfect in there. And it's like, well, uh, there's things that I've already programmed, and that becomes fast, and then there's very specific things that have never came up that I have to do manually, and that becomes several hours and maybe days. And there's a huge difference between those. People don't understand that difference because they seem like the same thing from their view because all they see is the result. Uh, then there's people who really don't even understand what's going on. I'm doing data analysis for scientists, for researchers uh, at a university, uh, and there's some researchers that are painfully oblivious to what you can actually do with the data or like how it works. And there's just even some basic things that they should know as a scientist. Uh, like, so someone came in to like ask me why they weren't getting a significance with their experiment, and they had only two samples. They're just comparing one sample to another sample. You don't get any significance with only two samples. You're basically comparing two individuals. It's like comparing me to you, just the two of us, and drawing conclusions on how the entire human race works. You just can't do that. Your sample size is two. And I somehow have to explain that without making them feel like an idiot. Just like respectfully say, well, you see, uh,
that's
the
just that still
the
does sound like a.
false discovery rate is much higher with only two samples because you have more your false positives when you're making estimations based on a sample size of two, and then they feel like it's more technical and they learn something, and I'm not just saying you're an idiot for thinking you can compare two samples. This is basic science. It's basic experiment design.
That's the reward of having a job that nobody else understands, though, too, is that you get to constantly
Right.
feel superior to everyone.
It's you're right. Like it's like I've done this for like 2.5 years ish. So I have enough experience that I know what I'm doing and kind of how to explain here what's going on, what I can and can't do, and what's going on in the back end. But um, most of these researchers they don't. I mean, they're researching the sciencey parts of it. Honestly, that where they actually biologists dealing with a specific gene that they know everything about that gene except the uh, the new experience. So I guess to get some different kind of uh, uh, information about it, like RNA expression. Uh, and now they hand it to me, and the issue is they don't know how to process all this data because you're sequencing it all, and they don't understand what like how the data is being stored and what's happening in between the sequencing and the results, because there's a lot of steps in between, honestly, and any analysis that I'm going to give them is going to be a reduction of the original raw data that was sequenced.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the major step that most people don't understand, because the sequencer is just like sequencing the RNA raw, and it's it's just basically a file, a text file that has just raw A, C, T's, and G's for each sequence, and that's all you get. And there's what a million different sequences that are just short, like 75 base pair regions that were sequenced, and you can't draw any conclusions from that, obviously, because that's just raw sequences. What do you do with that? People think, oh yeah, let's look at the data. No, you can't look at the data. You gotta process it. So everything after that is processed. I have to turn off any adapters that are on there. I have to align it to the genome so that we know where the sequence goes. I mean, it's like a short strip of RNA, not even the full sequence, probably, because it has a limit to how long the sequence is that it's actually sequenced. Then you gotta like fit it like a puzzle piece to the whole genome and figure out where it fits. That's the alignment, and then you'll have to count. Okay, how many times did you find that it was here, like on this? And then it turns into, okay, it was this gene, and counts how many times that gene appeared, and then like you can start to analyze, what that, how many of those genes were found, or how many RNAs on that gene versus another, a different sample, basically, or usually a group of samples, actually, so that you can not just be comparing two samples to each other, but the software will handle that too. But like each one of those steps has some choices that you can make on like specifically how you handle that step, and you're running it through software to process it the whole way. This, and this, to go through all the steps, and people realize that you can get different results just by changing some of those options, some of those different things, because it's a reduction of data when you have to represent what happens in this experiment. It's not just showing raw data. There's no raw statistics you can do, because that go through a bunch of processing steps that can be different based on what software you use, based on what options you use with that software, and it'll run its own algorithms and different different software. They use different maths or whatever, so to give you the results that you actually get to see. So if someone asks me like, well, wait, but why do we get different results than this? I'm like, because it's a different analysis. You're using different software. You're putting it in an entirely different format, basically. It's like if you reverse enhance a video, like an image or something. Like you basically blow up a small picture big enough so you can see it. It'll be pixelated. You'll lose some something there. I guess that's not the best analogy.
Well, it's like trying to find the square root with the Pythagorean theorem, like using two totally different math formulas to find the solution that can only be found with one of them.
I don't know about that. Pythagorean theorem is the same no matter, like, so.
Well, no, I mean just like that's a squared plus b squared plus c squared equals c squared, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like trying to find, I don't know, a certain answer by using the formula, like for trying to find the answer to that by then going back and using the formula that gives you the square root. I don't know. I just I was spitballing. It was a mixed metaphor. I can't math, is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. So I'm thankful
that's
that you
fine.
can.
But yeah, that's how it goes. And like the just using these bits of software are hard to get a hand, and that's the biggest reason why I have a job in because no one wants to learn all that. It's it's kind of that step that none of the researchers want to get their hands dirty and learn it. Even though you can honestly learn most of my job, which is actually how I learned most of my job. With
By doing what?
Google search.
Oh,
With a Google search. it's, I mean, it's a lot of Google searches that like give you one of the steps at a time. And there's some tutorials online that you can find for how to do this or that, but you do have to have a little bit of an affinity for once you. I mean, I'm using Linux to uh, to process all of it, or that's the. You can use it on something else, but a lot of the software runs on the command line. I guess there's R. That statistics program doesn't need a command line, but there's a lot of there's definitely learning, but once you're past that, it becomes easy, which is nice for me.
I imagine that.
2.5 years running. I mean, better or more comfortable with it, so that's good. I like my job.
Good for you. No. I imagine that all math becomes easy. I imagine that understanding math makes doing math a lot more easy.
Well, that's the thing, though. I actually don't have to understand the math because the software does the math for me.
Oh, right.
That's the best part, right? Like, there's a software that I'm using that it does like all the normalization. It does uh, the actual calculating your logful changes and stuff. Whatever. Like it has all the calculating. It has like the package is meant to do it for you without you really knowing that much about it. Other than like how to use it, you really have to know how to use the software, and it's good enough. I kind of understand the math. I'm not a mathematician, and you know I didn't really I mean I took calculus and stuff. I was taking some relatively advanced math stuff, but not like super advanced statistics, which is what I really would needed for this. So I can kind of read like the Wikipedia article on what like the general idea behind a math technique is, and I can kind of understand it, but not really.
You start to be able to think in a shorthand with it.
I just say, yeah, it's magic.
You start to be able to kind
I
of think in a shorthand about it, though.
I can give like a. No, honestly, I mostly just have to direct people to what the name of that technique is. Like, oh, it's a negative binomial distribution. Ooh, that sounds mathy. I don't know what it means doing, but that's what it is. Yeah, like you say, like, oh, it's just using this or that technique. This is a Wald test. I don't know what Wald test to do, but it sounds cool. Some guy named Wald probably came up with it. He was probably wicked smart. Yeah, it, those those will do different things, and if I know enough, at least like what it's trying to do with this, oh, a Wald test is a kind of measure of significance different than a p-value. Uh, I hope you're not completely lost with what I'm saying here, but just like more or less, I probably know just a little bit more than you about these random techniques. It's just like, yeah, I kind of can give a basic explanation and then say if you need anything more detailed, you gotta look it up because I don't know.
You're just reminding me of Benedict Cumberbatch when he was playing Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, and he finally just looks at Captain Kirk and says, "I am Beta," and Kirk goes, "At what?" And he goes, "Everything."
Yeah, there's definitely there's definitely smarter people than me out there that are working on this. But I'm not a bioinformatician really. I look kind of, but like I'm not a statistician. That's it. And there are people who are actually like basically writing the math and the software that's doing all the hard work, and they work on papers that are the absolute most boring things you would ever possibly read because they're just filled tons of math that like is so complex that it has to take up 2 lines just for a single equation. It has all the symbols that you don't recognize from most of your basic classes. Oh, do all these different techniques that create all the software that I just use and kind of hope that it's the right one to use. Um,
I was trying to think of the way I was trying to think of before too was the quadratic formula as well. I was gonna say combine the Pythagorean theorem with the quadratic formula,
oh,
or try to somehow get the same answer. That was my terrible metaphor. So
oh
negative
yeah.
b plus or minus square root.
You do not want to use a the like you can't use the wrong format or the wrong formula when you're using the software, fortunately, because that would be bad. But it does a lot of the heavy for you, which is what it is. I'm really just a tamer of the software, just a software tamer in a lot of ways. I do some basic scripting on the side to help uh, make my life easier, go through the stuff faster. But it's most of the time just kind of for loops that like put each sample through the same process so that it's all consistent.
Do you
It's
remember? Yeah. Do you remember though back when we were at in whatever it would have been, I don't know, because I learned it twice. I went speaking about the quadratic formula though, like in all those complicated math formulas that some of them stick with you and some of them don't. But I
see
just
that's funny because you just called the quadratic formula complicated. Like when you get further on, that just becomes the easy part.
No, but the thing is, like, it is relatively easy. Like, I can still remember it because we actually, like, we sang a song about it and everything
Oh
when I was in
yeah.
school. Just
Well,
yeah,
we have to sing it now.
yeah. It's like
I think
nah,
that's necessary.
yeah. It's like nah,
All
did
right, let's
you
do this.
nah, nah, did you be
X equals
nah, did you
negative b
be plus or
plus or
minus square
minus
root,
square
plus or
root
minus square root,
of b squared
b square
minus
minus four
4ac
ac, b
all
square minus
over
four ac.
2a.
Oh, okay, we molested that terribly, but because I when I learned it, it was in a different tune. It was like faster,
Yeah,
but
you can do it till you uh, uh, what was it called? The Pop Go Weasel. There's a few tunes you can do it to, and honestly, I actually learned it different ways in different classes.
yeah, but yeah, I did the same thing. I learned it like twice, and the second time I learned it, the first time I learned it, I was homeschooled. The
Huh?
second time I learned it, the second time I learned it was for like our teacher took us through this process where we had to like uh fill out. It was one of those stupid things where you have to fill out like a whole sheet of paper with an equation. It was one of those rare times in a regular math class where you have to actually do like the like basically elongated mathematical calculations that give you the formula. Like supposedly they were trying to not only teach you the formula but teach you why the formula is what it is, and no one,
Oh
yeah, and
yeah,
like no one gives a
I
crap.
did a class on uh, or just like one for one class we did a proof of the quadratic formula, like transforming uh, equations tons of times until you get to the quadratic formula.
That's what I was thinking.
It
Yeah,
was
proofs.
really
Yeah.
neat, but also really tiring. It took a long time.
Yeah, I never really pay attention like in those, to be honest. I just copied everything down because I already learned the quadratic formula before, so I knew what we were getting to. So I was just it's like I'm going to write this down for the second time now. This whole elongated mathematical mess of numbers and letters, and I'm never going to use this again. Besides what I'm using it for right now, so it was really nuts. But it's kind of like when they make you do that, and you're like, yeah, I know I'm never using this again. I'm just going to, if I'm lucky, remember the quadratic formula, and that's all I'll ever need. So not going to be using that anytime soon. But yeah, that's where my understanding of that went. So, and
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a good use to a lot of the math that's taught, and honestly, just it's not just the math that you're taught that's important, but sometimes the logic behind the math is important. You realize it's important to learn that. Like in geometry class, that someone said that I heard someone say like it was one of the best classes they took, not because of the geometry that they took, but like the logic from proofs and stuff, because you have to specifically start with given statement. Here's and here's your proofs that are already like the theorems that are already well established that also are being used, and therefore this and you can come to a conclusion based on specifically logical reasoning step. You get some of that in like a good philosophy class will sometimes teach you like a lot logical stuff too, but there but you can get a lot more of that kind of stuff out of like a geometry class. You have straight up proofs and stuff. So some of those I think have side value besides just the math itself. I'll never remember all the theorems from geometry, but being able to think about things logically with the specific steps of like this is here's a given statement. I'm assuming this, and therefore you go through a few steps and get to therefore this some conclusion.
simple English we will never
Yeah.
understand. So
I don't know.
essentially.
A lot of classes, I think people forget a lot of their stuff from their school days, but it's the fact that you can learn it. And, uh, honestly, a lot of the basics are really important for life, and knowing how to learn it for later when you need to look it up.
There's that too.
Learning is also a skill, and learning how to learn, I suppose, is also a skill. But learning how to learn, it's a good skill to learn. Um,
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, we've been here for a while too. We've been here for almost an hour and a half. So I think,
oh yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you coming around too. I just wanted to go through that, and we went down a rabbit hole, but that's okay because I usually go down a lot of rabbit holes with these
We,
shows. So
yeah. I mean, that's how most conversations go between us anyway. I don't
yeah,
know how normal people talk, but
most of our conversations happen though, like between 7:30 and like anywhere from 10:30 to midnight or a little bit later in the morning. So we're kind of used to our.
midnight conversations are the best conversation. Fact.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Have you ever
Hey,
seen?
what?
Go ahead.
What? No,
No, go ahead. Okay, fine.
you.
Excuse me. Sorry, I uh, I sneezed in defiance. But anyway, no, we have you ever seen My Dinner with Andre? Uh,
No.
have I asked you this before about the movie? About that movie?
No, I don't know anything about it.
It's called My Dinner with Andre, and it is
I
a.
figured as much.
Just yeah, going to blow your mind right there. But um, it's one of those movies. It's a very unique movie because the whole thing takes place. Almost the entire movie takes place inside of a restaurant, and it's just a hour and a half long conversation between two friends in real time, and that's all that
Oh,
happens.
actually, I think you told me about this,
Yeah, yeah,
and I've never seen. I actually kind of want to see that because the way you described it sounds actually really interesting.
yeah. I think there's like a clip of it that's now also become kind of famous about like it's I might even see if I can put it like in this podcast just to insert it somewhere for people to listen to since we're technically doing sort of a critique of it. We might be able to get away with that. But it's there's like a famous clip of it where Andre, who's the title character, is talking about like modern society and how like modern society kind of functions like a prison and that no one can escape, and it's one of those types of it's a movie about one of those types of conversations that just goes on and on for like presumably several
Yeah,
hours, and where you talk about a little bit of everything from like how to cope with everyday
I
life to.
I mean, I like those kind of movies that actually have something to say, and like they, yeah, even in a seemingly normal conversation, you get different perspectives, and people will give their views and their how they see the world. It's really cool when you see this.
And that's what they talk about too. They talk about the moments in life that disrupt the normal like malaise and flow of life, and the things that like rock people, that really like disturb people and make people stop and think about the way a lot of our like social norms and traditions are all set up. Like one of the examples that he uses is there was like a famous incident that happened where Marlon Brando, the actor, won an Oscar, and instead of accepting it himself, he was on kind of a presumptuous streak. So instead of accepting it himself, he had a Native American woman come up to the stage to accept it on his behalf, and she gave a speech on his behalf talking about, I think, basically the
Huh.
injustices towards Native Americans. And that's one of the examples that they use of like one of those moments where he's supposed to just go up there and give the dang speech and be a cardboard cutout of a human being, but instead he chose to do something maybe a little bit goofy and a
Yeah,
little bit presumptuous, but it rocked everybody back and made them like you were actually
I mean,
watching
he
something.
wanted to do something that mattered,
Yeah,
and and it worked. Well, I mean, I guess it probably didn't work. We still mistreat Native Americans, but hopefully it made some people think about it more because I feel like Native Americans are the most forgot people who get mistreated constantly and still have absolutely no uh, respect given to them.
yeah. That's the weird thing about the internet too in this day and age, where like if to kind of branch the conversation to how like all those we've gone from a world where that sort of thing happens every once in a while because of a really powerful actor to now like anybody who wants to can get behind whatever social cause they want to get behind just with a few button clicks, and
Yeah,
it's really exciting but really scary at the same time too because
I mean, you can kind of quote unquote get behind a cause, but at the same time, there's so much out there that I feel like a lot of times it becomes cheapened and no one really commits that much to a cause when like I mean you remember the days back when like people would change their profile pic to something in some sort of protest or whatever like yeah I'm helping and not like that that's kind of inconsequential you didn't do much you clicked a few buttons yeah you kind of show your support and that's great but what do you really do you can raise awareness, quote unquote, and that's great. And honestly, I don't want to belittle that because raising awareness is great too. But at some point, you're not actually doing anything to help either. So there's a give and take. It's like great that you can raise awareness for stuff, but uh, how much does it actually change in in reality? I don't know. Not a lot sometimes.
yeah, yeah, it's just it's weird how like we've talked about this before too about that was another thing that was another whole other thing I wanted to talk to you about here on the podcast though was about something we've talked about before with the fact that you've unplugged from Facebook and
Oh yeah,
yeah so just yeah just tying into that how like you've unplugged yourself from Facebook and from a lot because that ties into how like we have so much information thrown at us through Facebook and so many things that we put out there are used and so much of our data is used to give us like this personalized view of our world online and
yeah.
we're kind of losing a sense of like freedom that we had with the internet I think
It,
because of big
it
sites like
gets
Facebook.
it gets pretty scary when you dig down into how your data gets used. I think the most annoyingly surprising thing is how cheap your data really is. It's literally pennies that people will pay for your data for just to figure out what you're cooking, and and it's a little sad because honestly, man, I would love to just pay you know $1 a month to just like stop people from spying on me. that would be that would be a great option. Like I would literally pay for my Google search if there was an option. Like, hey, can you just like never track me ever? I'll give you $1. Like that's actually probably more than you're selling my data. Is there an option out there? Big corporations. Hello, listening.
Jeez.
uh, I honestly, the problem with that is, of course, how do you trust them to still also not sell your data if you tell them not? But whatever. There's also the fun story that I've never been able to confirm, but it's a beautiful story that someone worked for like an advertising thing on Facebook, so they had access to some ways to advertise. But in order to as a fun prank, against his roommate or whatever, he decided to make an advertisement that's targeted literally at his roommate, so that only his roommate will ever see those ads. And he put like inside jokes about very specific things that his roommate is known for. There's like, he has trouble swallowing pills or whatever. Like, a random thing that usually know about you unless they're really creepy stalking you or your best mates. You generally start to figure stuff like that. Have weird conversations that come up. I don't know. So, like, he made an advertising group that was specifically targeted at like just his roommates. He had to like do a roundabout way. I think it was like he targeted a list of specific people that was like the minimum 50 people long or something, but 49 of them were girls, and he said only the males on this list are what I want to target, so it's only targeting him. And then there's like an ad about having trouble swallowing things or whatever, and like have like targeted ads of specific things that is made for it. And he would like occasionally put on a new ad that is like specifically targeted him. And every once in a while, his roommate would tell him, "Hey, check this out. This ad is like really specific or something." And he would laugh like, "Oh wow, that's weird." But like after a while, he put like a bunch of these out on and like he had a new one every once in a while, but he forgot about it at some point, and like a couple years later, he got like a call from this guy who's like his roommate's like paranoidly saying, "Yeah, I don't want to talk on the phone. We really need to talk." And like he's saying like there's like someone following some like spy. I got super paranoid because it was so scary actually. Because he knew him really well. I don't know if they were still roommates at that point. But like, it's just a funny story on how targeting can work out. Most of the time, ads aren't that targeted, but probably only because they know it would be that creepy, and because honestly, the targeted ads are not always super accurate. But it's just a funny non sequitur story.
No, but yeah, I've had people in my office that I work at too, like talk about that. They talk about what the secretary in our office asked one of the other people there if they had ever had if their Facebook had ever managed to read their mind, because sometimes it really does feel that way. Like you don't post anything, you don't say anything, but you just like you think about something or you do something in real life without any social media or use of your phone at all, and then you'll see an advertisement about it on your Facebook wall, and that will get scary because it will.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you kind of
I
know.
mean, I I don't know if it's true, but people like say like your phone's basically always recording, and it'll hear you talk about stuff, or maybe the mic at your computer. It it very well may be true. Um, I don't know enough into that, whatever. But honestly, more likely they did actually click on something on some other website, and that website has a Facebook button, like to like this page or whatever. And if it has a Facebook button, like a like button or whatever, a social media button on the side for whatever thing it is, for an Instagram or other things too. Actually, Instagram's owned by Facebook, whatever.
Oh, really? I didn't
But
know that.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Instagram is owned by Facebook. They bought it out. But in like Twitch is owned by Amazon now. That yeah, companies are always eating up other companies for breakfast, and consolidating to make their monopolies. Whatever, or at least whatever they're trying to go for it. It's weird that some people are moving from Facebook to Instagram and not realizing that it's owned by Facebook and they use the same data. But anyway, if you go on a website that has that Facebook button there, then it also shares data with Facebook. And people don't realize that if you go on that website at all, it will track you. And when I say it'll track you, it'll share with Facebook that, hey, someone clicked my page. It was this guy. If you're logged into Facebook somewhere on your browser, then it knows exactly who clicked to that page. And now Facebook knows that you clicked on whatever website there. So you went to, I don't know, a page for automotive maintenance, just to like look up one of your local car places to fix some random thing. Now they know that you have this kind of car, and they know you have the that it had us some maintenance recently, and they can maybe sell you some accessories for that car. I don't know whatever ad want to do with that, but they'll have like something like, even if you don't like make an appointment for that, they'll know you clicked there. Especially if you didn't make an appointment, then they'll advertise like, hey, you looking for car maintenance? And they'll be like, whoa, they read my line. But most people just honestly forget that they clicked somewhere. I honestly think that's most of it. Your browsing history is not your own. It's owned by everyone who's watching, and everyone is watching. Trackers are extremely hard to block. I have like 6 different add-ons to try and stop as much as I can with ad blocks, tracker blocking, some temporary tabs, privacy add-ons, script blocking. Gosh dang it, I have way too many of these. But canvas blocking, that's some scary stuff. The fact that it exists, no one ever thinks of that. There's a way to identify you based on your browser itself. Ever think about how unique your specific computer is? Your exact monitor size, your version of the browser you're using, whether you're using Firefox or Chrome or whatever, or what version of JavaScript you're using. It can easily ask for all these things. You can query what the user is using just for your basic HTML, just to make sure that the HTML page is going to display properly, because you have to know certain things like, oh yeah, how large your monitor is makes sense, or at least how large the window is. But that's super easy to query all of those things, and the combination of all of those can make a unique fingerprint for you, and that has a unique identity attached to it. And when you compare that to the rest of the world, you have a very unique identity. Just by querying that, you don't have to be logged in anywhere. People can just use that canvas to basically assign you a unique identity that this is you, Jack of All Beanstalks. You're doing this here. They know that you went to YouTube to upload your podcast there. They know that you clicked on a website of a local haircut place to make an appointment or whatever, or I don't know, whatever. They find that your canvas, your identity there matches here, and here, and work up an identity using. There's a lot of technology that can be used to do that. You can fingerprint people really easily, honestly, if once you have the technology of like what you're actually doing. It's extremely hard to block it all. Honestly, quitting Facebook wasn't just about it is based to at least I won't have data being thrown into their hands, but at the same time they're probably still getting it. But it's also honestly the social media part of it. I don't think Facebook ever really did me any favors. Like, just being on social media, uh, I don't know. It it kind of social media in general becomes kind of depressing at some point. There's uh, a lot of crap they try to sell you basically, and you're just kind of like following people to see what everyone else is up to, but it can become like a grass is always greener thing or something, or whatever. The following what everyone's doing like at every moment is never something that really appealed to me that much. At some point, I kind of fell out of Facebook already before I deleted it. I just thought I was like, well, I'm just kind of using the messenger now, and I can probably keep in touch with people with something other than that. Uh, Honestly, what really did it was I did like a 1 month social media fast. Um, that I didn't go on. I didn't go on Facebook. I didn't go on Reddit. I didn't do anything that could be considered like that. There was a bunch of other websites I chose. Like I'm not going to go on any of these. Um, and it was really refreshing on it. It's really refreshing when you just put down social media and all that and just kind of go through and do all other things you want. Like there's a lot of time you gain back to how much time do you spend on social media. A lot of people are almost addicted to it. Um, there's all sorts of problems. I don't know, but you, you can have a whole lot of for or against, honestly, and sometimes people just stay because all their friends are on. Honestly, all my friends are still on it, most of them anyway. But I can also keep in touch with like Discord, which you can also say a social media platform in some regards, but less invasive, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
almost start to like how disorganized. Like I'm not dissing Discord too much, but like I start to like how disorganized Discord is, in a sense, because it
yeah,
feels less rigid and it feels wilder in a good way. Like it feels like it gets back to the purity of the olden days when you would just put a bunch of messages on forums and it would be really sloppy, but also like it would breed creativity and silliness and
yeah,
all the stuff that makes the
yeah.
internet great.
I like Discord. It feels more homey and honestly for what my purposes are for communicating with people. It uh, excuse me. It works a lot better.
But yeah, I'm interested when you said you took that 1 month fast because actually you uh you probably don't know who this is, but there's a guy named David Rubin, I think his name is, and anyway, he's like a political and social commentator online, and he used to be with the Young Turks, if that gives you some idea of if you're
The
familiar.
youth in Turkey.
Yes, exactly. No, we do know the Young Turks, right? Or do you?
I don't actually wait. What?
It's basically well, okay. Young Turks though is basically like a news web, like a news. It's one. It was at one time one of the most successful YouTube wannabe news platforms. Basically, if that makes sense, it
Oh,
was a
okay.
YouTube channel, an online channel that tried to basically do its own version of the news and also various other media enterprises. Like they had a really good movie review series for a while called What the Flick. They had like a lot of other just good media outlets, and one of their contributors for a while was a guy, I believe his name was David Rubin, and he just recently, like very recently, within like the last couple of weeks, he described how he recently went on a also the same thing, a month long social media fast, and I think he also went on a month long screen fast where he would try, I think as
Oh,
much as humanly possible, not to even use his phone and like he admits that he cheated at one point, sort of, because I think he like went to see Avengers Endgame in theaters. So he went to see a movie. So he watched some television or movies, but he tried to go on like really a complete fast, at least from the internet and from especially social media and texting and just the barrage of information and communication that we get all the time now. And one of the really interesting things that you said, though, too, is that he actually started to remember things. He felt like he started to remember things from his own life, which he had, like, it's not that he didn't know them anymore, but it's, every once in a while, something that we've kind of repressed will just sort of pop up. Like the details I was remembering about what it took to clean the fryer and goofy stuff like that. And every
Yeah,
once in a while, stuff like that will just pop up, whether you were consciously thinking of it or not. And it was there the whole time, but it's like you just hadn't activated that particular like neuron in your brain yet, or in a while, or whatever. Um, and
yeah,
he said when he went on a fast from screens, he felt the effect of how the brain is like a computer and it's constantly being barraged with information. And when that happens, it has to turn off the other information that's not useful at that moment. So when he drained himself of screens and social media for so long, he actually managed to start remembering, he said, like old songs and things and old memories and stuff that he hadn't thought about in ages and ages and ages. And he realized he was getting back memories and dwelling on the actual details of his own life more so than he had been for quite some time, because his brain had been so preoccupied with constant updates and information with no ending. And finally he was able to just
yeah,
stop that, and his brain was able to like readjust itself and balance out to where it wasn't just intaking information, it was able to ruminate or marinate on old memories like that you hadn't thought of in a long time. And just, I'm kind of fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by the
yeah,
effect it has on your brain like that, and on sort of your perception of reality, too, because you can build your own
yeah.
whole little world
It's
with that.
it is actually kind of interesting like that because, like you said, it's you're kind of like a consumer of information in a lot of ways, and I think it's important to have some time to like process that. Like you can't just constantly be, you know, consuming information nonstop from all directions. You're basically bombarded with stuff all the time. There's alerts and there's updates and all these things. But if you just do nothing but eat and eat and eat, you're gonna get fat. So I like to say stuff like that. Like you kind of have gotta have some downtime to process. Sometimes to unplug a little bit. I don't have a whole lot of updates to like my phone and stuff. I got a very base, honestly. Not it's still smart. I don't like getting up, but like I don't have Facebook, so I guess there's not a social media to update me on stuff. But like I barely have a few things that I go through. So
Yeah, yeah, just
a
for him.
day I'll check my email. Once a day I'll check like a few other things. But like I'll specifically go seek that out. I don't have like an updates constantly. So it's at least uh, more mild. I I did after the fast that I did. I decided like Facebook wasn't worth it. Um, but I didn't like cut out of everything. I guess. I still use Reddit sometimes, but that's one of my
That's one of
uh,
the
oh,
universal guilty pleasures. You can't get that out.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah.
Just can't get away from that.
hmm I was also
There's been some cool things I've found in Reddit. I sent you some cool quotes the other day that I found. Right?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
the other day.
yeah. At some point, I'm
Those
gonna
things were fun.
Yeah, at some point I'm gonna read those off, and I might even read those off on an episode of the podcast. But yeah, credit goes to you for finding those, cause yeah, and that's what I mean too. When like Reddit is another great example. Like Reddit and 4chan are like the poster child, the ugly, demented, horrifying poster child of the internet as Wild West. Like that's I keep having this idea of the internet having a metaphor of being like the new Wild West because it started out as this wild, vast, weird, strange,
Yeah,
exciting place where anything was possible, and now we're
it
seeing,
really is.
and we're seeing, you know, the slow creeping hand of either big companies and then government intervention on those big companies, or maybe the government working in collusion with those big companies to somewhat stifle that wildness and freedom. And it might well get to the point within our lifetime where things are taxed and priced that used to be just free and taken for granted for us, and it's like a really interesting technological metaphor for like the American West or something like that, where
Yeah,
everything started out really free flowing and just unbothered, and then slowly everything became mapped out and restricted and held under specific rules and regulations, and there's it's very hard to find a place to just escape from all of that just contractual BS. And the same thing is
yeah,
kind of slowly
yeah.
happening to the internet.
The internet's the real final frontier.
I mean, really, in a way, yeah, yeah. That's kind of like what.
We went to space once, and it was kind of cool, and we realized we can't really get very far, so we just abandoned that frontier. And then we made the internet. We're like, yeah, let's do this instead.
My infinity is bigger than yours. Uh, have you seen that? Actually, on that topic too, have you seen that real life lore video of? You know real life lore on YouTube?
No, I
Oh,
haven't used a lot of YouTube. That's another thing I kind of unofficially quit.
no, I get you. But yeah, if you, I'll send that to you after we're done here. Real life lore, and it's the video I'm thinking of is called "How Big," like just how, or the universe is bigger than you think, is what it's called, and it's a video that puts in perspective like the real scale of the universe in a way that we can't imagine. Like at one point it starts talking about the idea that because of like how fast light travels and somehow in relationship to how fast our universe is expanding, that means that in theory at least, depending on I guess what you believe or what you're willing to accept, it's theoretically possible and even probable that if there was life on other planets or existence elsewhere in the universe, our universe is so vast that it would be literally impossible for any of us to ever communicate with each other, even with an infinite amount of time. Like it's crazy, but it's the idea that the universe is so big that it's literally there are
I
some of
mean,
us.
it's true. Like the universe is expanding constantly at like the speed of light. You can't. At some point, the distance becomes so great, it doesn't matter if there's more life. It's just going to be impossible to ever find each other. It's like if there were only two people on the entire Earth and they could only walk and not use any transportation. How what's the chances that they can find each other?
Dang, yeah.
It really is. It really is kind of like that. First of all, uh, there might be an ocean between the two, and there's actually uh, a good comparison to that in the universe because we've got galaxies that are clumped together, but we don't really uh, have any possible means in mind in traveling between galaxies because they're so far apart. It's mind how how big the universe is, and that's just the even the visible universe, the observable universe. is mind-boggling large, because you can even see like there are other galaxies out there, but the distance between them, I don't even know. I can't say off the top of my head how large it is. But even if I could say the number, it would be measured in not like not just light years, but there might be a bigger measurement because there's so many, and it would be actually impossible for the human brain to comprehend how large a distance it is. It's actually, there's certain numbers that the human brain cannot comprehend once you get to a certain size. There's like, if I told you to imagine how big is a trillion. Picture a trillion of something, like a trillion pennies. Uh, you probably have like some picture of like how much is a trillion pennies. You can try to picture that as well as you can. Now, if I told you to picture 2 trillion pennies, that's twice as much, right? But if I just told you picture 2 million pennies before picturing 1 trillion pennies, you would probably picture about the same thing because your mind can't quite comprehend numbers as large as a trillion. It's quite difficult to do. Once you get to a certain size, the human brain starts to become incapable of comprehending how large it is. Same with distance and other measures of scale. It's just so much that you can't even think about it. It's literally incomprehensible. You just
That's that.
Inconceivable.
No, that's that quote from H.P. Lovecraft at near the very beginning of Call of Cthulhu, where he says, I don't have it in front of me, but it's basically, I think the most merciful thing in all of existence is the inability for the human mind to correlate all its contents. So, in other words, it's merciful to us that we can't actually, like, process all of the information that we've been told about the universe all at once. Because if we really got a real picture of the true nature and size and scale of the universe, we would basically go mad. Because, as you say, our brains couldn't tolerate the information. Our minds couldn't tolerate the information.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
I mean,
Lovecraft is all about. Is like the idea that there's like that, like all
that's
the
cosmic.
yeah, and all the
Specifically, there's so much out there that we don't understand, and when confronted with it, it's maddening.
yeah. It's just it's impossible to withstand it. So that's what the Dark. I've only ever read the first book in Stephen King's Dark Tower series, but the Dark Tower starts getting to that really heavy. Like apparently the tower itself is. I don't think it's supposed to be. I haven't read that far in the book yet, so I don't know. But I think like a character at one point says the tower is supposed to represent, like in theory at least, the biggest thing ever, like the definition, quote unquote, of size, like the real, like I don't know, like it's those books. I bring those books up because they're really Lovecraftian and they talk a lot about this, about like alternate universes and cosmic horror and the horror of like the true nature of existence. But they at one point someone says that like that the tower that of the title is supposed to like somehow. I think it's eventually revealed that the tower itself is somehow holding all worlds and different universes of the multiverse together, and that's because the tower itself like is the definition of like it's an embodiment of something that is so big and of such great scale that we can't comprehend how big it actually is. But anyway, that's what popped into my head because that's kind of the conversation. Like
Yeah.
at the very end of the first book, the first book of the Dark Tower series is just called The Gunslinger, and it's about a gunslinger chasing a man in black across the desert. And at the end of the book, at the first book, he thinks he's found the man in black, and the man in black is a magician basically, and like he's a real like legitimate wizard, and he's one of the tricks that he does is he basically like takes the gunslinger and shows him like the different scales of life. So he shows him like his own size and then gives him a vision of himself like increasing in size till he's bigger than the planet, as big as the galaxy, as big as like one portion of the universe, and he gets he lets him feel himself get incomprehensibly large until he finally sees like the one he sees the thing that the whole universe itself is just one tiny part of, and it's a blade of grass. So it's like that trippy idea that like all of yeah, it's like all of our universe and everything we know is just like one tiny like portion of a blade of grass in another world that might get mowed down at any moment. It's
well,
really trippy stuff.
well, actually, uh, wasn't that part of oh crap, Dr. Seuss's world? The
Horton
How the
Hears a
Grinch Stole
Who.
Christmas was all on a snowflake, and he actually did Horton Hears a Who as well, which was actually um, much more part of the story. But he had multiple worlds that were, just on a little thing because uh, a lot of people forget that How the Grinch Stole Christmas was all taking place on a single snowflake, um, which really has interesting, uh, like ideas of like, okay, what happens when the snowflake melts when the summer comes? I always thought about that, but
Does it actually say that in the book, or are you just thinking of that opening portion of the movie?
oh shoot,
I know it
no,
says.
no, I think the book said it was on a snowflake. I think that was part of the maybe. I don't quote me because
But
it's
no,
been a
yeah,
while
I know what
since I
you're
read.
talking about though. At the beginning of the movie, they have that cool visual effect where it comes into a snowflake. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, but
But
yeah, that's yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't. I doubt they would just randomly add that if it wasn't in the book. It probably. I think it was.
Maybe
That would be a really random thing. Either way, it doesn't matter because
we're
he
talking
also did
about we're
Horton
talking.
Hears a Who, which was probably even better example of world on a blade of grass.
Yeah, there's that part where like he accidentally like almost drops it. It's like a fleck of pollen, and he almost accidentally like drops it a little bit. And in his world, he just catches this thing that he loses for a moment. And in their world, there's like an epic 10-point earthquake, and it's nutty. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so
It's weird. It's a children's book, but it almost deals with some of that cosmic stuff happen. Like, if you ever thought about like what it would be like to live on that spec, that's that's cosmic horror right there, and it was written by Dr. Seuss for children.
yeah, yeah. Doctor
Horton
Seuss.
Hears a Who was inexplicably terrifying for me, and I I couldn't explain why as a kid. People were like, "What's wrong with you? It's just a children's book." I'm like, "Really, really?"
I love learning this about you because it seems quintessentially you also, but it's also really it's really neat. So yeah, I get that.
There, there's also the other fun thing I love that finding out about Dr. Seuss was that before writing children's books, he was writing like political cartoons, and you would see him draw like cartoons that were that were uh, condemning uh, foreign policy against the Nazis and stuff, uh, like pre World War II, and it's like this is exactly in the same style that Dr. Seuss drew all of his children's books, except it's a lot more politically relevant for your history class. And man, just really interesting to see. uh,
Yeah, he did. He wrote this. He wrote this other book. I'm a big documentary junkie, by the way, and there's a great like 45-minute documentary about him on YouTube. And one of the things that I think, in order to test, because he knew that obviously he was now like officially stuck as being a children's book writer. So in order to test his editor's claim that he could supposedly write whatever he wanted, he wrote like the Dr. Seuss book that was all about sex and nudity. And it was actually made, but I don't know that it was in wide circulation. But obviously, it's not one of his actual children's books. But it's called like the
Yeah,
nine.
that would
Yeah, it's called like the either the
understandably.
nine goddesses or the nine goddesses or the nine sirens of something. I don't know, but it's like about a bunch of naked women frolicking around or something. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah, and it's
Okay.
drawn like Dr. Seuss, so now you have those images on your
Ooh,
eyeballs for the rest of your life.
another fun editor thing. We were talking about apparently one of Lovecraft's works. He wrote and H.P. Lovecraft isn't famous yet. I don't even know if he was famous while he may have died before really people start recognizes his work as great. But like he trying to get it published, and the publisher said, "No, I can't publish this. It's too weird." It's like, which to be fair,
Yeah,
at the time when there's nothing else like this, calling one of H.P. Lovecraft's works weird is kind of the normal response, honestly. So I'm not gonna fault the publisher for that. It's like it's never been seen before, and it's not a safe thing to publish. But a lot of publishing places and people like try to go with safe stuff. There's safe movies nowadays. But anyway, they didn't want to publish it. They're like, oh no, we need. It's kind of I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness. So he said, okay, I'll give it a read. And he reportedly just sat on it for like 2 months and didn't even look at it. And then he submitted it again and said, "All right, I took your suggestions, and I this is my rewrite." And they read it, and I'm like, "All right, sweet." They published it.
I wonder how many people.
He just didn't change a single thing.
I wonder how many people still get away with that though too to this day. Though that's gotta be an
I
interesting thing to think
honestly,
about.
I heard that, and I actually applied that to my work one time when I had someone say like they wanted some of the thing um some other thing changed that honestly wouldn't have made much difference. And actually, I already included something that they said they wanted included, but they either just didn't look at it enough to see it and whatever. So I just basically highlighted the part that was already there and then sent it back in like a couple days later. I didn't even do much on it, but I sat on it a little bit and I gave it and said, "Oh, I see you added this. Good, thanks." people, people, if you say you did something or you uh, they changed it or whatever, they'll look for it more and they'll find it. They'll find something that they were looking for before. If you say it's there, it's funny, but it works sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes like all they want is validation. They just want their opinion acknowledged. So
Yeah, I mean, I could have just said it's already there, just look closer. But by saying I took your suggestions and here it is with like a making it more obvious that it's there with like the highlight thing, whatever. It was uh it was more uh it was more like, hey, you contributed and you uh yeah, your opinion mattered more, and less of this was already here. You're an idiot, which was good because uh, that was at my prayer job that Uh, it was one of my clients, essentially, or not one of my clients. It was basically, well, it was a client. It was, I don't know, but they actually had a decent say in whether or not I had a job. So I wanted to make sure that they didn't feel like I was belittling them, even though I basically was secretly.
Yeah, yeah, fun times.
Yay, corporate America. Um,
Which brings us back to McDonald's, which is like going full
hey, full
circle.
circle. uh,
Jeez. Yeah, that's really,
does that mean we have like a good stopping point or whatever?
well,
Or,
something you sounded a little bit like there was something else you wanted to get into. I didn't know if there was.
no, no. I just I just talk about stuff. I don't have any plan.
Yeah, that's what I do, and it usually works pretty well. That's what people tell me. So, but no, yeah, that's full circle though. We've been here for, dang, how long we've been having this
Yeah, are you
conversation.
gonna like do a super cut of this, or are you actually uh, post the full length?
I think I might. This might be one where I edit some things in afterwards, just because it'll be an interesting kind of project to find the interesting parts of it and edit them together. Not because of
Yeah.
anything going necessarily wrong, but just because it
Oh
is
yeah,
longer. So
it's
so
it's pretty long. I don't know if I don't know how many people will just gawk at the time length and be like, oh, I'm not listening to that.
that's why I tried to find a
I have
compromise between some people who wanted it to stay a little bit lengthy and some people who wanted it shorter. Was I tried to add timestamps to the different topics so you can skip around to a topic that
oh, that's
interests
good.
you. Yeah, that's what I did with the
Yeah,
last one.
I think that's one of the best things you can do with something like this because we have different topics and stuff, and I think you technically asked about the dentist thing early on, but then we somehow got into the you know the fryer cleaning technique and stuff. So it's good to have like where the actual points are pointed out, and of course the contents listed. It'd just be quality of life. Uh, I think it'd be best,
Yeah, a bigger thing to let people know about. So, but I
and they
appreciate it.
probably don't need to hear us talking meta about this part.
Yeah, yeah,
But
which we really need. But yeah, I appreciate coming on to do it with me. I just like I knew you had some interesting stories to tell because we always end up talking to each other after we're done playing D&D. So I thought, or
yeah,
echoes
no,
of
no
moment.
problem. It's always fun talking. It's these are fun and interesting conversation in general. I have no doubt if someone would be interested in having these kind of conversations, someone would be interested in listening to these kind of conversations. So it's I think it's cool the kind of stuff that you do.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. That's what I've been told. Is just I think my format or the way I wanted to do it kind of lends itself to having a guest on every once in a while because I'm sorry if I've interrupted you in course during this time, but I do tend to like I've been used to these so far being dominated by just me kind of I have like a general idea of some stuff I want to talk about and I drift from topic to topic. But
Yeah,
I try not to like hog the mic if I'm sharing it with somebody. So I think having occasional guests helps me stay better at that because then I don't feel pressured to like make sure that like I've branded each show as one where I'll talk a certain amount and my guest will talk a certain amount. Like with this, can just be more free flowing because
yeah.
I've had to accept that about me that I do like to talk a lot and then you get that under control anyways. But it kind of the a format
I
where I
mean,
let every,
talking a lot is good for a podcast of one. But like a lot of times you don't have a guest, and you're just gonna be talking. If you weren't talking, then there'd be awkward pauses.
yeah. I've talked a little bit about these similar topics though too. That's why I brought the technology thing up a little bit too. Is I have been kind of building up to it a little bit in some earlier podcasts. I haven't really described it in the most elegant way, but I was like good enough that I was like that's a starting point. So it's
Yeah.
you get better at it. You grow. The point though is the repetition to just churn out episodes and see what comes of it. So I think I
Yeah.
appreciate you being part of this one. This is only the. I think this is still only the. I think this is gonna be the fourth one. Actually, let me look. I actually don't even. No, I think there's. Yeah, I think this is gonna be the fourth one because I'm pretty sure I did three beforehand. So yeah, I've already gotten three up, so this will be number four. So we can see
Sweet.
how it turns out. I probably am gonna do a lot of editing on this one though, see if I can edit in some stuff to make it more interesting. Because I think the beneficial thing about this is since I think we can technically justify it as being discussed in a critical context, we can mesh a few like sound bites and things together that would make it sound more interesting even if they theoretically have kind of a copyright
Yeah.
over them. We could see if we can do that and get away with it, which I think YouTube will let us do, but we'll see. So anyway, I maybe not, but I'll see if that comes around. So, but I appreciate you.
Yeah. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I
I'm looking
appreciate
forward
you.
to listening to that.
Yeah, thanks. I'll see if I can get it up and put it up there for you. So I'll let you. I'll make sure I send it to you first, just so you can hear it first if you're curious about it. So, all right. Well, thanks
All right.
for. I appreciate you taking part in this one with me, and thanks for being here to talk. I really appreciate it. A lot of good topics, and a lot of good times. So,
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
thanks, man. I appreciate it. So I'm gonna log off for real actually after I stop recording because I got something to go to anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Okay.
I'll let
Thanks,
you
man.
go.
Yep. I appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Yep. Take care. Bye bye.